Welcome to the Sleep Button. Tonight, we journey to the sleepy town of Dustwood, nestled deep in the high desert of the ancient American West, a place where time moves slow, and every breeze carries a whisper from long ago. As the stars begin to bloom in the dark sky, let your mind settle in beside the flickering lantern light, where the hum of cicadas and the crackle of a fire promise peace. Tonight, you'll meet a quiet man named Jonah, a lonesome traveler whose boots have worn the dusty trails of more than a dozen towns, but none quite like this one. Now, take a deep breath, let your body soften, and let's begin our story. Chapter 1. Jonah McCrae Arrives. Jonah McCrae arrived in Dustwood just after sunset. The horse beneath him, a gentle gray mare named Clementine, slowed to a trot as the town appeared like a mirage. Faded buildings, lanterns flickering like fireflies, and the long shadow of a church steeple piercing the purple sky. The air smelled of dry pine, leather, and old whiskey. Jonah wore a dust-covered coat and a soft brown hat pulled low, shielding eyes that had seen too many sunrises and too few beds. Dustwood didn't seem like much, but that's exactly why he'd come. He wasn't looking for excitement, not anymore. All he wanted was rest. Chapter 2. The Sleepy Saloon. The first building he passed was the old Starlight Saloon. It wasn't rowdy like the saloons of other towns. There was no poker, no brawls, no swinging piano, just the soft clink of glasses and the gentle hum of a fiddle behind closed doors. Jonah tied Clementine outside and stepped through the creaking doors. Inside, it was warm. Lamplight spilled across wooden floors, and an old woman with silver hair polished a glass behind the bar. She looked up and smiled. "You look like you could use a soft chair and a good story," she said. He nodded. "I'd settle for a soft chair and quiet." She chuckled and poured him tea, not whiskey. In Dustwood, they did things a little different. Chapter 3. The Postmaster's Secret. After his tea, Jonah wandered to the post office, not for mail, but for shelter. The postmaster, a round fellow named Elias, offered him the upstairs attic to sleep in. As they climbed the stairs, Elias whispered, "This town's got no telegraph, never has. Some say that's why folks sleep so well here. No noise from the world outside." Jonah smiled politely, but there was something comforting about the idea, a town disconnected from the worries of the world. He lay on a cot by the window. Outside, the moon glowed low, and the wind whispered softly through the willows. Sleep almost found him, almost. Chapter 4. Cactus Songs and Candlelight. Sleep came slower than he'd hoped. So he walked. Past the sheriff's office with its quiet porch, past the general store where a cat slept in the window, past rows of cacti that swayed slightly in the night wind, their spines humming gently like tiny wind chimes. A woman named Clara sat on her porch with a candle and a book. She was reading out loud to no one in particular. Jonah stood and listened. She read, "And in the desert night, the stars lean low to kiss the earth good night." He didn't know if it was poetry or scripture, but it felt like peace. Chapter 5. Coyote Trails and Firelight. The next evening, Jonah sat by a fire behind the saloon. Clara joined him with a blanket and 2 cups of spiced tea. "You ever hear the coyotes sing?" she asked. He shook his head. "They don't howl here like in other places," she said. "They hum, low and slow, like they're singing lullabies to the hills." And just then he heard it, a soft, breathy song. Not quite a howl, not quite a whistle. It drifted from beyond the ridge, not scary, not sad, just peaceful. He leaned back, looked up at the stars, and for the first time in years, he didn't want to leave. Chapter 6. The Old Shell. On the 3rd night, Jonah was given a gift. Clara handed him an old conch shell. "It's from the sea," she said, "but it found its way here." He held it to his ear and listened. Not to the ocean, but to the memory of it, of waves and gulls and wet sand between his toes, back when he was a boy near Galveston. The past didn't hurt as much here. It softened, like the edges of driftwood. And Jonah finally let go of something, though he didn't know what. Chapter 7. The Dreaming Tree. There was a tree just past town. No leaves, no fruit, just tall and still. Locals called it the Dreaming Tree. They said if you stood beneath it at dusk, you'd dream better that night. Jonah stood there as the sun dipped low. No sound but the wind. No feeling but calm. That night, in the postmaster's attic, he dreamed of nothing. Just darkness and silence and sleep. Jonah stayed in Dustwood longer than he'd planned. Weeks passed. He grew a garden behind the post office. He started carving wood again, small horses mostly. And each night, as the stars returned and the lanterns dimmed, he'd sip spiced tea, listen to coyotes sing, and fall asleep to the sound of a town that had nothing left to prove. No bandits, no gold, no gunfights, just peace, and the quiet miracle of a good night's sleep. So now, dear listener, let your mind settle in the soft sands of Dustwood, and let sleep carry you across its quiet, golden plains. Good night.